We're all so quiet tonight.
And hello and welcome to Still Digging, presented by the ArchaeoRPG Collective. Welcome to episode 9. 9. We are number 9. We are your home for the only live bi-weekly archaeology panel discussion on YouTube that we know of.
It's totally fair.
Sure.
And so I'm the host of this panel, Bill, and joining us in the panel we have Serra, we have Tom, and hopefully we have Amma, but she's been jumping continents, so not sure what continent or what day she's on. So if she makes it here, great. If not, we will miss her. Today we're going to be discussing contemporary archaeology, discussing the portrayal of Native Americans in video games based upon an article we've been reading recently. And finally, today is World Mental Health Awareness Day. And in honor of that, we are going to spend sort of the last part of our show talking about mental health within the field of archaeology. So with that being said, let's dig in. So we go to
I don't know if we're getting audio on the stream.
No, that was me. I'm sorry.
About to say, I got all my audio up. We can't have,
it was me. I'm sorry.
By episode 9, we should be like up and functioning properly and
should and are.
You have really high expectations about my functionality as an adult.
We are professionals here. Hey, look, ArchaeoRPG is broadcasting, Still Digging, live right now.
I see it. Yeah, but there's no audio.
You mean there's no
Have any audio?
I'm not hearing it on the stream.
I heard it.
What's going on with mine? All right, whatever. Somebody else monitor it. My internet is doing weird stuff. Somebody else monitor it. There you go.
There we go. We're there. We're there. We're
Okay.
Professionals. Don't worry.
All right.
We will edit that.
Don't listen to me.
As always, we're going to edit that part out in post, so it'll be a clean, professional image on here. So who wants to jump up first? Do we want to talk about contemporary archaeology, Native American representation? That's pretty much the only two options.
Do we want
to save the mental health for the sort of the ending of the show?
Sure.
Type of thing.
Contemporary archaeology, because I started a thing on Twitter.
Let's do this. Yes.
Grr.
So, yeah, no, it's actually been really positive. I'm not mad at all, actually. I just, I tweeted out earlier. Oh my God, that's a picture of a dog. Never mind. I tweeted out earlier about how I keep kicking around this idea that I'm going to go do the archaeology of Ren fairs, but I also want to talk to the people that are inhabiting the space at that time, because I think it's important to understand how they're perceiving their interaction with history, even though clearly it's not even remotely accurate. Well, at least from my point of view. But and then to look at the archaeology of just the temporary settlements that they create, and then the permanent village itself, because I've got at least 3 of them I think within driving distance of me, so that would be actually really cool. But I've been told by multiple people that A, that's not really archaeology, B, isn't that more anthropology because you're talking to living people, and other little dings that are just kind of oh, I guess I'm not supposed to do that as archaeology. But I just keep coming back to it. I'm just I don't know why it's not archaeology. And so I kind of tweeted that out, and I've been getting some really great responses on modern archaeology. it started off with the skateboards, the archaeology of the skateboard parks. Bob Merkel's talked about that a few times, and I know there's other people that have. I just remember seeing Bob do it. And also the studies of migration. A few of my friends when I graduated, they were doing the archaeology of the homeless in the area, and I know that's a thing that happens through a lot of the big cities now. It's just, I think maybe the idea of what archaeology is maybe changing.
Right. Well, I think if you go back to like that book Garbageology, that sort of major project that was done about, I guess it's almost 20, maybe 30 years now.
Garbology's been around,
where they would go through the city dump and go through the trash of people, but they knew exactly who they were taking the trash from, and they also simultaneously conducted surveys with the people who were living. And so then you were able to sort of get data based upon the material culture and the reported culture from there on, like things like drinking habits and smoking habits and sort of other lifestyle choices, where someone self-reports and goes, I really don't drink that much. I drink about once a week. And you go through their trash and there's 3 cases of beer in their trash can. So it's something we currently already do in historical archaeology. You look at a plantation site, for instance, and you look at the will and the deeds, the probates of a property, and they tell you what sort of material culture was supposedly found on the property, but you're also excavating to confirm whether or not that material culture is actually present, and whether or not there's things that aren't being talked about, more importantly,
right,
on there. So I don't see why you couldn't absolutely set up that. I mean, in the end, archaeology, here's a controversial historic archaeology put our foot in the ground point. Archaeology at its basic form is a study of humans through their material culture. Period.
Yep.
Temporal's not an issue.
See, but temporal used to be an issue, and I know this because I've been reading introductory books,
right?
Because my final project, I'm not my thesis, but my final project, I'm working on some videos for Digital Hammurabi, and I'm doing basically just kind of like an introductory to archaeology set of videos, and so I decided to look at textbooks, as you do. That's my neighbor. But a lot of them are very insistent on, archaeology is the study of the past. It's the study of past peoples.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got to a book that was called Strung Out on Archaeology. Yeah, Strung Out on Archaeology by Laura A. Wilkie, I think that's her name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great book, but she studied Mardi Gras. She was studying Mardi Gras back in 2014. So you can't really get more modern than that. And she doesn't, she's like Bill, she doesn't say that she doesn't put time on it. She just says it's a study of material culture and human culture that way. But, we're still teaching this. That's not a normal introductory book. So we're still teaching archaeology as the study of the past, even though a lot of people don't want to study the past anymore. They want to study, the current situation. And is there ever going to be a point where we could maybe even do the archaeology of the future? I know that sounds weird, but I don't know how that would work just yet, but
like predicting material culture?
Maybe, I don't know.
Totally. I suppose you could try to set up predictive models for material usage and things like that, but I don't know.
I have no idea.
That one's a little.
That would be a little harder because even if you could predict what's going to be made in the future, what maybe is less easy to predict is the sort of adaptive reuse that humans do with material culture, which is really the most interesting things we find.
Mm-hmm.
When people use things for their intended purpose, that's kind of boring. It's when people use things in ways that no one expected. That's the cool stuff.
I mean, like Flint napping toilets.
Yes.
Yes.
Just-
Oh, actually, this is kind of interesting. So I recently did this past spring. I did an evaluation project on a site close to Richmond, but it was on this farmstead, and there was a person who lived there who was interested in Native American stuff in general, but also like was teaching himself how to flint knap. So we had. And it was actually our evaluation area included the area where they were dumping all their debitage, which made it complicated. Awesome. But luckily they was very concentrated in one pile and very obvious which ones were modern and which one what we were finding that was not. But the person had they had glass in there, they had porcelain, they had imported materials, so they had like all kinds of weird flints and rhyolites and obsidian and all kinds of stuff, and I think there was like a few pieces of porcelain, because that's actually the nappers that I've talked to, where I go, hey, I want to learn how to do this. What's the best stuff to do it with? And it's either you can buy a block of glass, or toilet porcelain is super cheap, and you can get it, or just find it in the woods a lot, honestly.
They're using
You'd be surprised how many pilots
too.
Huh?
Bottle bottoms, like Coke and beer
what happens to
bottle.
be- Yeah. And you can find some examples of that on mid-19th century enslaved settings.
Yep.
You could find
lot
glass snapping.
Yeah, expedient tools made from mostly expedient tools, but some more sophisticated stuff from glass bottle bases. Yeah. But to go back to the Renaissance Fair stuff, I think the one near you would actually be the most interesting. The Pennsylvania one would be.
Yeah, it's like the number 2 oldest one in the country.
Yeah, and they've got that like cobblestone area kind of at the entranceway, if I'm remembering right. There's like a little like street.
Oh, yeah, they've got a whole house there.
Right. Well, yeah, they got that too, but
house, and then it's all built on the grounds.
Yeah, but that grounds also is used for, they do like a Dickens Christmas thing too, right?
Yeah,
So
they do a Dickens thing, and they also do an Edgar Allan Poe thing.
Oh man, that's cool.
I know, it's really awesome. I can't afford to go to any of it, but right after Thanksgiving, though, they are going to have just a show-up open house kind of thing where you just get to tour the mansion, and that runs until, I think, right before Christmas. So we're going to drive up there and go see the house, because that's all I really want to see. I don't really want to eat dinner or anything there. I mean, I do, but I'd like to see the house. I'd like to see what the grounds look like when there aren't Renaissance people there. Renaissance people there.
Fantasy? Can we call them fantasy fairs?
No, they're Renaissance fairs.
Are they
it was
though?
Queen Elizabeth this time. I think the current story is Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary are fighting it out right now. I think that's the October storyline.
Is this the Pennsylvania one?
Yeah. There's some kind of like, every October they do a Halloween themed storyline, and I guess this one has to do with Mary, Queen of Scots, and Queen Elizabeth. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on yet. I haven't gotten to see the story yet.
Now,
that's cool.
I would say that the big difference, I would think, between an anthropology of a Renaissance fair versus an archaeology to Renaissance fair is that an anthropology is going to be focused on observation, even participant observation of the groups out there, and interviews with the groups out there, and that's going to be the primary source material used for that. Where an archaeology is, there'll be some interviews in there, and I think the structure of the interviews are probably going to be a little different, probably focusing more on the things that people have rather than why you're there and things like that.
What are you doing where?
And additionally, it's going to be ground truthed based upon the actual archaeology that's found in trash receptacles and on the ground and so forth like that. And for some of these older ones, there could actually be legitimate field survey conducted. I know the Maryland one just celebrated their 20th anniversary on the same site. I don't know how long Pennsylvania's been on the same site. So there's going to be I doubt it's going to be stratigraphic deposition, but there should be a plow zone with enough mixed distribution where you might be able to do plot maps, like surfer plot maps, to talk about like during this era, this area was more popular based upon material culture versus this other era where this side of the park is more active and so forth. And now we're actually talking about landscape use, and we're talking things like that. So
that's honestly one of the things I'm really interested in is like the use of space. Like like we said, the Renaissance Fair has been there forever, in the history of Renaissance fairs in America. So like it's had time to develop and grow, and I know that some of the buildings have moved around. I mean, they're not always the way they are. I was talking to the blacksmith who's there, and he was telling me how they had expanded their booth, that they have a booth and they've got a forge, and they were expanding their booth. And he was telling me how they had actually, like, when they dug the foundation for the new building, they were encountering artifacts from buildings past. And he found the actual forge area for the Victorian house, and he had some of the glass slag that they had found in the ground. He had that on display, and that was just interesting because it was like history repeating history, showing off actual history, pretending to be history. It was just very meta. And like, then it's that kind of stuff. Like, how are you using space? How do they see the space? How are they reacting to it? How does the space help with their interpretation of their story, their history, that kind of a thing. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
There's potential there, and you could even do a compare and contrast with like something like this versus like the infield at Pimlico for the race of Pimlico every year, the Preakness, and the material culture of sort of a different class, a different group of people on there. Considering the Renaissance Fair, I think it's blowing up a little more now. In the older days, it was definitely probably would qualify more under the category of subgroup, or a smaller subset. I'm fading there at the end. But
is anybody familiar with there used to be a Virginia Renaissance Fair in Fredericksburg?
I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah. So there's an Atlas Obscura article about it. I'm going to post it in chat. But it was operated for a long time and then abandoned.
That's just a straight up archaeology site. That's a straight up archaeology right there. There's no question on that.
Yeah. So I don't remember when exactly it was abandoned. It might actually be in there. But oh wait, hold on. Where'd it go? I've already lost it. But that would be a good spot to start, honestly. Although it is, I guess it's still, it's still used by a sportsman club that uses it for hunting, shooting, and recreational activities. So you would probably you're going to find a whole bunch of garbage from the fair and, little bits falling off of things and small finds, and then shot.
I just walk in there.
No, it's still privately owned.
Okay, that's what I was.
And well overgrown. So you could get in there, but you would have to
have to ask permission.
Well, everything.
Yeah, you'd have to get permission from the landlord. Yeah.
I mean, being overgrown isn't that big of a deal. I just spent 3 weeks peeing in a cornfield. I don't really care that much.
It's standard, I suppose, for us.
So,
I think the one that actually would be interesting to me. So I've been to the Maryland one a few times, and they have.
Yeah, I like theirs.
Yeah, they have 3 or 4 like established bars, I guess you would call them.
Yeah.
And I think they've been there for a while, but it'd be interesting to take a look at if there's any differences in between the material culture left at any of those, to see if there are like
the bar is the center of an area, and then they have like shops around the bars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see if there's like any kind of social stratification between them.
Yeah, like the weirdos hang out in this spot, and the other weirdos hang out in this spot. And
this is where the Klingons go.
This is where the inappropriate, they're not inappropriate, but this is where all the video game cosplayers hang out.
So I think with that we can
see, looking at the costumes that people wear and like the history of the costumes. Like last time we went to the Ren Fair, or last year when we were at the Ren Fair, there was several groups of people who showed up cosplaying as Critical Role characters.
Okay.
That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Why not? Right?
Exactly. Why not?
You're having fun wrong.
Speaking of which, that's another reason we need to be on a tight ship, because the new episode, since they were off last week with their burger heist that turned into a kerfuffle, is going to be on at 10, and so we got to make sure we're on a schedule. So let's pivot now.
Are they posting?
They're going to be on at 10 o'clock tonight, so East Coast time. I got to be ready for that. Okay, I need to be ready to go watch Critical Role at 10.
Got it.
So,
all right,
we're going to move on now to it's sort of archeo gaming related. I found this article on Twitter a couple days ago from Indian Country Today, and it was discussing 10 video games and sort of saying who got it right and who got it wrong in terms of the portrayal of Native Americans within those games. The title of the article is Oregon Trails to Assassin's Creed, Right and Wrong Native American Portrayals in Video Games. This will eventually be in the show notes. I'm trying to get into our back channel chat. Maybe somebody can put that up for you guys. So it was interesting because, of course, I've played nearly all of these games, but it was interesting because this is obviously it's an article in Indian Country Today, written by C.A. Printup, another Native American. So this is a view of video games and the portrayal of Native Americans in video games from a Native American perspective, and I thought this was very interesting to see when they would call out who gets it right and who gets it wrong, and what from this perspective what that means, and that's not always going to be the same thing. So I'm just going to jump right on this list. You guys comment if you played these games, if you know what we're talking about, and if you kind of understand where these yays or nays are coming from. So the first one on the list is a got it wrong, and this is they rate these on a 10-point scale. So getting it wrong is like below 5, and getting it right is, above 5 or some arbitrary point. So the first one to get it wrong, Civilization 6, 3.3 stars. For offensive stereotypes, lack of consultation, and inappropriate regalia. And
regalia or regalia?
Yeah.
Regalia.
Okay.
Well,
Beaches.
You say potato, I say potato.
Basically, that's the gist there. And so this more had to do with the expansion pack, Rise and Fall, because it included a Cree leader, a chief pound maker, who was an actual Cree leader from that time, on there, but the game, the publishers never consulted anyone from the Cree Nation to discuss the representation on this, and the game seemed to perpetuate the myth that First Nations had similar colonial values of conquering other people to assess their land. and that can make sense. If anyone's played any of the Civilization games, you pick a particular nation or country, and your goal is sort of one of three goals. Either you take over most of the land on a territory, you develop your civilization to the point where your technology is far superior to everyone else, or through the military conquest, you've wiped out all of your opponents. And it seems to be a very much to keep the game quote unquote balanced, and for gameplay, every nation pretty much has the same ideology. They're here to participate in the game of civilization.
Empire building,
all that kind of good stuff. And I can see on one part is like, well, here we're going to bring in some representations of Native Americans. So we're going to bring in the Cree. That sounds cool at the board meeting. How are we going to do that?
I mean, why specifically Cree? One, and also, I mean, like, why Cree? Why this specific leader? And I suppose I can understand, just as kind of a devil's advocate argument here, that they're putting them on the same footing as all of the rest of their cultures. Not that those cultures, or this one in particular, reflect those values, but I mean, like, what? I'm not sure there would be a good way to put them into this game at all.
Well, it would then rethinking the game of how a game like this works. Is the premise of is a game where you are out to conquer everyone else using nations, using historic nations as an example.
Yeah, because I know when Civ 4 and 5 came out, they upped the number of female leaders that you could play. There was almost like a 1-for-1. There was every group that you could play had a male leader and a female leader. And when they were doing the females, like Catherine the Great, she was shown in like a general's outfit and not in her queen regalia. So I think part of it is they pick, so maybe this is why they pick the Cree. I don't know anything about the Cree, so this is just me spitballing here.
Right.
But they try to pick people or groups that have well-known war leaders, and then they try to present them that way. Like, which never makes sense because freaking Gandhi, it doesn't matter what iteration of Civ you play, Gandhi will kick your ass.
And he's the nastiest.
And he's a sneaky bastard about
Yeah,
it,
that one
too.
apparently is actually a holdover from the first one. So they're like, nations were supposed to be put on a scale from 1 to 10, and Gandhi was supposed to be like a 1 or a 0 or something like that. And they coded it wrong, and it made him a 10, so he's the most aggressive character. And they've just kept that kind of meme trope, whatever you want to call it, in all of the game.
But yeah, so like maybe that's why they picked the Cree. Maybe this particular leader is well known as a warband leader or something. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just kind of tribes, and I mean they're all it's just generic. It's just like, here's a random name. Here's a random name of a random leader. Because even within the game mechanics, you can just select traits. Like you just pick a picture and add traits to it. So like you can play a character, and it doesn't have to be a character. It's not even, you can select the traits you want to customize it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like on one level they're just avatars. But on the other level, they are historic people with historic baggage that goes along with them.
Right, but I mean, it used to be you couldn't even play the tribes at all. Right. They were just barbarian villages.
Barbarians, which was even worse.
So I guess in a way this is an improvement.
So we're going to go to our next one, which is I got it right, which actually surprised me. Assassin's Creed 3, 8.5 stars. Now, once I read the why, it makes more sense. For having a Mohawk consultant on call, and for refusing to trademark culturally sensitive names. So, the Assassin's Creed games have been all about going into the past and trying to, as authentically or, authentically make a world where dudes run around in hoodies stabbing people in the neck.
It's time travel, man. It's all time travel.
It's not even time travel, it's DNA travel. It's even crazier, man.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So in this one, we have the protagonist, Connor Kenley, who is a half British, half Mohawk character. In this, but there was a lot of a lot of the casting were native actors in there. There was an ongoing consultant, a Mohawk consultant, to sort of make sure that some of the faux pas and stereotypes were avoided, and to make things a little more authentic to the experience of the Mohawks. I mean, obviously it's still a game, and it still leans a little more towards the offensive portrayals of Native Americans as violent, but overall, and then also trying, and this is something tech companies are doing all the time, and a lot of companies are trying to trademark words so that it's part of their branding, and they can sell the toys and all that kind of stuff. And they made a point of not trying to put trademark applications on specifically Mohawk names for cultural items. So
I'm glad that didn't go over. I'm not surprised Assassin's Creed did that, just because I know that
all the rest of their games are very...
Yeah, their games are really detailed oriented, and they use just enough reality to make their games immersive.
Right.
I mean, clearly it's not reality, and they have to bend the rules somewhere, but it is nice that they brought in somebody from the tribe, and weren't just like, hey, a random Indian person, would you like to be our consultant? It's like, no, we're going to be dealing with the Mohawk. Let's bring in a Mohawk guy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice.
Also, this is a really fun game to play. Just the same.
I mean, the Assassin's Creed games, like, there's a reason they're popular. So
yeah,
they do a really good job at what they do. I mean, we just talked about the Odyssey game, and they had people consulting on that too, archaeologists and historians consulting on that. But they also have a storyline that's about Atlantis. So
So it's all factual and real. I get it.
Yeah,
no deviation from truth. Got it.
I'm just saying. I appreciate that that's the reality they decided to go with, was keeping the Native American stuff as true to form as they can keep it, and still have a game.
Right. In the end, though, someone still needs to stab somebody in the neck.
That's true. Eventually, somebody's going to get stabbed. It is a video game.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there is something a little cathartic about watching indigenous people try to take back their land, or not land, but I'm going to stop there, because I'm probably going to say something real dumb. But there's something very post-colonial about it, and I like that part.
Well, let's talk about the exact opposite, and something that's going to hit you right in the nostalgia. Going it wrong.
You died of dysentery.
Oregon Trail, 1.1 stars. For refusing to acknowledge
my dream.
For refusing
the original Oregon Trail?
All of them.
Yes.
For refusing to acknowledge the stereotypes in previous incarnations while actively promoting more stereotypes.
Brilliant.
They didn't even list the things they got wrong. It was like, this is just terrible.
It's just wrong from the beginning till the end.
It's just wrong, and even the latest iPhone version is still just wrong. The poor innocent Protestants from the East Coast on God's mission to populate and take this bountiful empty land to the West are savagely attacked by these horrible peoples. Yeah, that's the story it perpetuates. And you get dysentery.
I was going to say, if you're not dying from dysentery, you're doing it wrong.
Are we though?
Yes.
Also, I think the wild Amma has appeared.
I have.
Yay!
Can you hear me okay? I actually got myself a nice little microphone.
I know, you sound much clearer now. Ooh, fancy.
Yay!
I guess to get you a camera so we can see your morning
Oh.
face.
One thing at a time.
So yeah, right now we're talking about an article about representation of Native Americans in some video games from an article from Indian Country Today. We made it through the list so far. Apparently, Oregon Trail, where Native Americans do nothing but attack the poor innocent settlers, is not a good representation.
I was going to ask, does it make mention of, or have you guys ever played the Amazon Trail?
No.
Oh. I've heard of it. I've heard
kinda-
of it, but never played it.
So I grew up playing it. It was a PC game. When was it released? 1993, and it was inspired by Oregon Trail. It was. I don't know the entire background of it, but you actually met and traded with and spoke with local indigenous members of the community. So like if you got not dysentery, I think it was like malaria, you actually had to trade for indigenous plants in order to help yourself.
But you could live. That's the question. Like an Oregon Trail, you die. They just announce that you have died of dysentery. You don't get a savings throw.
Well, you could rest, and I think there was like a healing kit or like some kind of health kit. But with this one, you specifically, I think there were a few like Western medicines, but a lot of it was actually collecting local plants and learning about animals as well too.
That's kind of cool. That would have been a lot more fun for me to play than the.
You died of dysentery.
You died of dysentery. 2 of your oxen have died in the river.
Now,
You shot a buffalo. You have 2,000 pounds of beef. You can only carry 8.
Now, granted, I'm looking at the wiki for the Amazon Trail, and historical figures such as Henry Ford, Roosevelt, and Claude Levi-Strauss all appear in the game.
oh wow!
Levi Strauss?
I want to visit Fortopia.
I mean, all of those, but Levi Strauss?
Well, no, I mean Fortopia. I mean, that's awesome. It's a great little book about Fortopia, and about how horrible a place it was and miserable. And then what Walt Disney did down there too was also horrible and miserable. But anyway, to get back on track, let's talk about a game that gets nearly 9.9, nearly a perfect score. Gets it right out the box, out the door in terms of representation. And this should be no surprise for anyone who's played this game. It's Never Alone. Because this game was absolutely made in collaboration with the indigenous developers. A child named Nuna and her Arctic fox as they go across the frozen waste of the frozen lands of the Arctic, and in between levels you actually get educational videos and information about the Inuit people, like based upon the level you played. If you had to hunt, you then would get a short video afterwards about how contemporary and historic Inuits would have hunted in this region or got shelter and things like that. So I've played about half this game so far, and this is a beautiful, awesome game.
And I'm probably not understanding the way the structures work for groups up there, but it's Inupiaq, not Inuit.
Right, it's Inupiaq. Yeah, yes, it's different.
Yeah, Inupiaq.
We, as a group, apologize for mispronouncing all of these words.
Yeah, I'm trying not to say too many of them because I know I'm going to butcher them.
I've been trying my best to avoid any of the words, but that's also is not an excuse. As I've seen plenty of times on Indigenous Twitter, we should be out trying to educate ourselves more on this. So this is an attempt to try to do that, and remember, our mistakes come out of ignorance, not malice.
Right.
Speaking of potential malice, I'm trying to run through
this game
because
this game is beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful.
And there's a white fox, like my white cat, who is ignoring me.
Yeah. This is truly excellent. And so it's mostly platforming, and they work traditional story, like they work a lot of traditional storytelling into the game itself, and then also like the reward system, like Bill was saying, is like are interviews and stories from indigenous storytellers. The whole thing was written by indigenous-owned video game developer for the specific purpose of like telling this story, basically. It's absolutely beautifully done. It
really is. I'm watching clips of it.
Gameplay. It's great. It's very, it's like I think I got it for like $10 on Steam, or maybe less than that.
Lots of Steam sales, available on all the platforms. It's available on phones. It's available everywhere.
Yeah, it's 15 right now and 18 if you want to get all of the downloadable content plus the free soundtrack, which I assume is decent.
Yeah, I might have gotten on sale, but it's very affordable and an excellent game. So if you don't have it, go get it.
So that was it. $18 for a game. It's not bad.
So I'm going to do a little rapid fire here because I want to give us plenty of time to talk about the mental health. So I'm just going to go through rapid fire, and at the end we can comment if we have any comments on these. Getting it wrong. Mortal Kombat, 2.5 stars. Developers don't listen to criticism and rebooted this character multiple times without input from natives. And of course we're talking about the character of Nightwolf. And if you've ever played any of the Mortal Kombat games which feature Nightwolf, picture your worst superhero stereotype of a Native American, and that's what's on here. Now, in a fighting game which gets it a little better, getting it right, in Killer Instinct, there's a character named Thunder, but at least it looks like the developers listened to criticism and outcry, but there's still a lot more work to do. But they actually were responsive to some of the criticism from Native communities about the portrayal of these characters, as opposed to Mortal Kombat, where they just keep doing what they're doing.
Combo breaker.
Another getting it wrong, but almost getting it right, is the portrayal of Native Americans in the Red Dead Redemption games. While there's a lot of Native cast in there, they're mostly in the smaller roles. The larger roles went to non-Native, which became definitely, I remember that became controversial in Red Dead Redemption 2, that the major Native character was an Afro, the Charles Smith, who was an Afro-Native character in the game, was portrayed by a Japanese Parsi individual, and it's not necessarily any negative response to him as an actor, but it was an opportunity for representation and portrayal. And as the heroes in Red Dead tend to be the white guy with the gun, it's going to put the native in an adversarial position in that. And even when they are sympathetic, as they are in the first Red Dead Redemption game, when they sort of are banding together with Dutch, spoilers, it's still in a violent sort of like last stand, lost cause type of effort. They've already lost the West, but these are sort of like some folks who just don't want to give that up and hook up with Dutch and start terrorizing the area until John Marston has to put him down. I've played way too many of these games. All right, and the rest of the games are games I'm not even familiar with myself, but they're on the list. So please read the article. It's a very good article. I would also suggest just subscribing and getting some information from the Indian Country Today, because they are a good source in news in general, to get your information from the Native American perspective, which is an important perspective that too often gets ignored in North America. I would say not just U.S., but in a North American context. So now we are going to pivot now to our discussion corresponding with the World's Mental Health Day, and I'll let Tom take over for a little bit.
Okay. So I am lucky enough to not have any serious mental health issues, or any really at all, aside from my regular existential crises regarding my career. Today's World Mental Health Day. There are a lot of mental health issues that have been associated, especially with CRM archaeology, with doing graduate school work, and even at the master's level, and even more so into the PhD. Back during the Public Archaeology Twitter conference, PATC 4, one of those, 4, back in earlier in September. Alex Fitzpatrick, Archaeology Fitz on Twitter, did a presentation on depression in archaeology and mental health in general in archaeology, and she makes some very interesting points that I've experienced in my own life, and I think most of the rest of us at one point or another have as well. Surrounding, she kind of brings it up multiple times, but being injured and not being able to work in the field, and what that does to your morale, and other effects that can have. But it's the mentality in especially in CRM crews is that if you can't work, you're a wuss, and who cares? But you get this kind of guilt for abandoning your crew if you're injured and you can't work. I myself have done pretty much exactly this. I hurt my back unbackfilling actually for a site a while ago, and got laid up with muscle relaxants for a week and was having trouble walking, couldn't stand up or sit down for any particular amount of time. And that it sucks. And field work in general also does this to you. If you're, it sucks, but pipelines are bread and butter work for a lot of people, and they're months, sometimes years on the road, living out of hotels, with sometimes you get really great crews, sometimes you get absolute maniacs on the crew, and there's a lot of loneliness, there's a lot of frustration with the job itself, and a lot of people turn to various substances to cope with that, in addition to trying to have support groups with your crew, at least just meeting up and talking and doing whatever else. But I think this is a thing that kind of gets put on a back burner a lot, because we do have this, and as Alex brings up in her presentation, we have this kind of toxic masculinity atmosphere in archaeology, where you got to be tough, you got to be strong, you got to drink hard liquor all the time, and just kind of put up with it for the sake of the dig or whatever, and it's not healthy. It really messes you up after a while, and it's difficult to deal with. So somebody else jump in.
No, I mean, the last crew, I just got off of phase 3. The crew I was with was amazing. I love everybody I worked with. We did have, you have your crazy town, but, for the most part, everybody really got along. It was a very good experience. We did have several injuries on the phase 3, and one of the guys tweaked his knee pretty bad getting in and out of the unit, so he had to take a day off. I had a migraine in the field, and I already have arthritis, so it was just like all the shoveling just aggravated my wrist after a while. So I had to wrap my wrist and keep an ice pack on it. I was really worried how my dig partner would respond, and how the crew in general would respond. And really, I didn't need to be. They were very supportive. Even the crew chief would come over and tell me not to overexert myself. I mean, nobody was like babying me or anything, but they were letting me set my own boundaries, and I think that's a sign of a very mature crew. But I think there's a lot of pressure for people. As far as like the mental health in the field thing, I mean, I'm very open about mine because I feel like it shouldn't be a stigma, and I think the more you talk about it, the less people are going to be weirded out by it. I mean, mine is really just kind of depression and anxiety, and I take medication for both of those. And I've never had, as soon as I start talking about it, 9 times out of 10, whoever I'm working with immediately says, oh yeah, me too. And so what I've learned is there's a lot more people in the field who have, issues that they're working on and who are also medicated for said issues than you originally would think. But unless you start the conversation, most people aren't going to talk about it, I guess. So I don't know, if you're feeling like you're the odd man out, maybe just ask someone you're friendly with on the crew, and they're either going to probably be sympathetic, or you might find out they're going through the same stuff you're going through. Almost everyone is depressed anymore. I'm not even trying to be sarcastic there. I'm just like, almost everyone I know is depressed anymore. So there's no reason to be ashamed of it or anything like that. And I feel like the last few times I've worked, people have been very accepting of just everyone, not just mine, but everyone's limitations. I mean, we've had a couple people who had like tragedies in the family, and the immediate response was, okay, when do you need to leave to go home? Not, well, you're here, you're supposed to be here for 3 months, none of that shit. I don't know, I think the culture overall is changing, but definitely in the past, it's been not a friendly place. I was thinking that, like, as an individual, this isn't that full, like, self-care bullshit. I think if you're out there and you're starting to feel like stress or pressure or anything like that, and you don't have someone to talk to, I think it's perfectly acceptable to take a mental health day and just kind of evaluate what's going on with you. Archaeology is going to be there. It's not going anywhere. And unless you're gonna like light your room on fire and like flip everyone on your way out, you're probably, it's not gonna hurt you to back away from a project if you need to. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that. I think a lot of people are afraid that, like, if they're on a bad project or if they're having a bad time of it and they're like, I gotta go. I think they're afraid that they're never gonna get work again. And, unless you're a problem child, you're probably not going to have that problem. Most people will respect it if you're like, I got to back away. And most people I know will respect that. So, I don't know. It could be worth saying.
Yeah, I will interject this a little bit there. Especially for, and I think some of it is on this point, but like it's a lot of you don't show up to work, you don't get paid, and a lot of people are, if your only means of income is archaeology, you can't necessarily even afford to do that, which is a whole other issue for maybe a different day regarding working conditions and specifically CRM, but also academic archaeology.
I'm doing academic archaeology, like I don't do it.
Hi.
I've worked at a museum before. Hello.
Wait.
Hello, academic archaeologist.
Hello. I believe you rang. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
What's like at the academic level?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I'm listening to what you're talking about, and it's very much field-based, and that in and of itself, when you're talking about both goals, but settings and communities, it creates a very different environment. But you sometimes do get similar situations, and a lot of it depends on the community itself, its structure. In field school, I've been really lucky insofar as my experiences with the field school that I work with. We're pretty understanding of the fact that we have a range of people with different experiences. They'll come into archaeology maybe with a few field school experiences under their belt, and some of them, this will be their first time, and it might not even be their specific area that they've had a whole ton of experience with, and this kind of physical labor is new to them. So my advisor will encourage people, or not even bat an eye if somebody decides to take a day and spend a day in the lab, just sitting and processing finds rather than, another full day of out at the site. And so in that regards, I try to reinforce that and at least say it out loud to some of the students that, because we are an international field school, making sure everybody takes that time and assesses how they are in the process. And even at the beginning of the dig, I don't know if you guys have had this experience as well, but we would always say, field school is a little bit like summer camp. There's like a peak moment where tensions just hit this like mounting point. And both as a team of students, but also as a team of managers, having that understanding and building it into place, we know what's going to happen, and you can't always be prepared for every situation, but knowing that it will happen and trying to support the group when it does is built into our field school at least. And I know it's not built into everyone, and it's not everybody's experience.
I mean, I know you can. I know. Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say that we don't really get that. We don't really get that opportunity on the crews that I worked on. And we also have a much broader range of experience. Man, I mean, we've had people that are coming on with 10, 15. I work with people that have like 20 years of experience in earthquake techs because that's what they want to do. And I've also worked with, I've managed crews that are all, fresh out of undergrad, have never dug a shovel test in their life, and it's that's kind of the nature of field school right now. That a lot of field schools don't include survey. They're almost all just phase 3. So they're a cool project, which is great, and they're good for learning on for the more complicated processes, but also, doing a 40-acre survey and you're walking 2 or 3 miles a day, digging a shovel set every 50 feet, not finding anything, does something to your head too. And this is actually a safety thing that my company includes in there. We do like monthly briefing things. Weekly briefing things where, you got to watch out for the younger employees, the younger workers, because they think that the standard is what the person doing it in 15 years is doing, and if you're not used to doing it at that rate, like it can be physically dangerous, and also it really decreases morale if you think that's what you're supposed to be doing about that.
Mm-hmm. If I can jump in and say, I will say, I think I painted a pretty nice picture of the field school, but I will say, a lot of that comes from, like you were saying, where are people looking to and where is leadership and who's setting those standards, and is there a system in place to handle, the physical issues? But I mean, it also comes from community as well too. I think Sarah pointed out, there are times when people have those discussions, is there a forum to say, me too, I'm going through something, is it built into the crew or is it not? And that really depends, on the project, on the site, on, who's in charge, but also the crew itself. So there's a lot of diversity in the situations.
So
most crews I know don't have that built in. It's just something that happens, like in a community. It's just kind of a spontaneous thing. You never have a crew that clicks or they don't. I mean, it's not that black and white, but especially when you're working with a company okay. Anyway, I was gonna say when you're working with a company, I've been working with the same group for 2 years now, so I know a lot of the people, and so they're familiar to me. But I think if I were to go to a brand new crew, I'd be kind of shy and standoffish, so I wouldn't have my social net there, I guess is what I'm saying. But anyway, let's talk about it now.
I think this has been a very, very good discussion, and it's probably more of a beginning of a discussion than anything being concluded here. I think one good takeaway for anyone watching this is, if you feel you're having any sort of mental health concerns, whether it's a little bit of extra anxiety or truly dread or anything really major coming up on there, take care of yourself. Don't think of it as anything other than it's a medical issue, and you get it treated in the same way you get your ankle treated if you sprain your ankle. You get your mind treated if there's a little problems with that too. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no stigma for that. And it's a reminder to all of us out there in the field, whether in the field, in the office, in the classroom, in the conference, look out for each other, be there for each other. Don't just run your mouth when you're having a conversation with someone, but actually look at them. Try to look at their body language. Do they maybe look a little distressed? Ask them. If they tell you no, that's fine. They don't have to. Sometimes just having someone acknowledge them is good enough. Even though they don't want your help, they'll walk away and they'll still be happy with that. So look out for each other. So that's basically it. Look out for yourself. Look out for each other with your mental as well as your physical health out there in the field. And so with that, we're going to wrap up another week for this. And we'll be back in 2 weeks on the 24th for our yet to fully be determined holiday special. I think there might be something about demonic archaeology might be occurring, maybe.
Yeah.
But the rest of the show is still being worked out. And next time, Sarah will try to dress up for a more Halloween theme next time. I'm saying you're not in a Halloween theme today. Next time you'll be in a Halloween theme.
Not nearly spooky enough.
Not
Halloween
enough pumpkins.
October 1st and it goes until the day before Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
So with that, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us at ArchaeoRPG on the Facebook, the Instagram, and the Twitter. Our email address is at archaeoRPG@gmail.com. If you like what we're doing and want to support our show, you can do so at Patreon, www.patreon.com/ArchaeoRPG. And please, like, share, subscribe, spread the good word. We want you to evangelize for us, okay? So, once again, thank you, and keep digging. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.